We're at 9:50 straight up.
All right. Then we are going to get started. It's exactly 9:50 and we have exactly 40 minutes, so we're going to get rolling. My name is Natasha Newman, and joining me is my partner, Ruth Basquette. And our goal for today is really to describe how a county office has partnered with school districts and higher education university, two scenarios of how this was done. And just very briefly about myself, I started in the late 90s as a bilingual teacher in San Diego, became a principal, and worked at a district office, and moved into now university level at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. And I have also partnered with Los Angeles County of Office and Ruth on a bilingual state grant, which is the story that we're going to tell today. Go ahead, Ruth.
Yeah, welcome. Good morning, everyone. It's so good to see colleagues and friends. Hopefully everyone got a chance to do a bit of light gardening before they joined us, because you're beaming from your homes. So put in the chat if you did some good chores before you hopped in this morning, which is something that has never happened before COVID for me. Usually we're checking out and scrambling and trying to get to the airport. I'm Ruth Basquette. I started out as an English learner, but then I became a fourth grade bilingual teacher, resource teacher, district administrator, site administrator. I'm at LACO. I'm the project director of the Multilingual Academic Support Unit at the Los Angeles County Office of Education, where I have the opportunity to work with amazing districts and teachers and people like Dr. Natasha Newman, who has joined us to help support the growth of our DLI programs through this state grant, which we're going to tell you the story of. So Natasha, take it away.
I will. Thank you. Thank you. So as you're joining, please feel free to enter in the chat box who you are, if you'd like, your organization, your role, and maybe your thoughts on how your life is feeling right now. And we've given you some roller coaster rides to think about as you're thinking about life right now and work. So this is helpful for all of you to know who's in the room as well. Okay, so while you are taking a few seconds to do that, I'm going to remind you that if you have thoughts, questions, you can put them in the chat box. And thank you all for having your mics muted. I know I have a dog who tends to run through here, and big teenagers, so they've all been trained to stay out. In case you've got traffic flow in your house, please keep your mics muted. Okay, thank you for joining us. Great, Oxnard, awesome. Inglewood, awesome. Vietnamese DLI, that is fantastic. Okay, so cool. So our goals for today are, as I was mentioning earlier, to share our journey of two county offices of education, partnerships that were made, all to collaborate around supporting multilingual education. And also to really celebrate the expansion of dual language immersion programs and bilingual authorizations, which is really the key, right? Having teachers who feel supported, prepped, and ready to not just start in dual immersion programs, but grow them as well, really fostering teacher leadership as well. So again, this is a tale of two projects. We are going to be describing Los Angeles County Office of Education's journey with the California Department of Education grant, the Bilingual Teacher Professional Development Project, as well as San Luis Obispo. While the counties and districts are very different, there are some really important similarities. You can see in the second bullet point the need for bilingual authorizations and teachers to serve in multilingual classrooms. And both counties are really striving to make this happen through partnerships, county offices, as I said earlier, school districts, and universities. So having this link across organizations to make this happen.
So we wanted to just really emphasize the journey of the county offices of education. And I know we have a lot of folks attending CABE, a lot of folks from the site and the district level, but this particular journey of a county office of education is a little bit unique. And we have two different counties that are kind of embarking on the same journey with the same purpose in mind, but through different pathways. And just to give you a sense of what Los Angeles looks like, you know, one of the most linguistically diverse areas of the entire state, if not nation. And then we have San Luis Obispo, which is a different, more agricultural, spread out, more geographic, you know, expansion, but yet the density of our county is something that sometimes, you know, is an obstacle for maybe expanding some of these projects, whereas some of the smaller counties have this breadth, and we've been inspired by some of the vanguard work of some of our county offices of education. So this project was an opportunity for us to invest in research and development and really growing a seed of those DLI programs. And I have to thank our superintendent, Dr. Deborah Eduardo, who has really championed English learner programs and DLI programs. And I know, Natasha, you wanted to say a couple words about San Luis Obispo.
Yes, similarly, and we'll get into San Luis Obispo uniquely. Dr. James Brescia, who's the superintendent of the County Office of Education in San Luis Obispo, has also really championed this and effort and made it a priority in the county to continue to support new teachers in their funding of their bilingual authorization, as well as growth and support of dual language immersion. And I'm thrilled to see some, Celia's here from San Luis Obispo, and I think some others as well. So again, while we are geographically different populations, it's really helpful across the state to have this communication of common goals to lean on each other as we figure out how to do this work efficiently.
But let's face it, Natasha, if this was a beauty contest, San Luis Obispo is way more beautiful, okay? Less freeways. It's just the green, it's like you live in the Shire, like in the Lord of the Rings, it's beautiful. So, but I love my county, yay, LA, but it's still, San Luis Obispo is gorgeous. So who we are here in Los Angeles, we're the Multilingual Academic Support Unit. This is our particular challenge or journey. We are part of kind of the overall, as all my other County Office of Education colleagues, the system of support put together of the state. So that blue egg on the side, the center, that's the districts, that's the most important focus of our work. And we provide technical assistance for EL services. If someone asks you, what do you do all day, you know, helping English learners, show them this graphic and say, this is what I do all day. This is what takes up a lot of my time. But you can see that it's a technical assistance accountability piece, and we wanted to grow. Language programs was this kind of side note that we wanted to expand. And I have to give a shout out to my predecessor, Magdalena Ruz Gonzalez, who was our director before, who really had a passion and instilled this seed at LACO for growing dual language and world programs. And she set up some structures, but this BTPDP funding gave us a chance to grow it more. So this was our particular challenge. Natasha?
Okay. So as we move into the meat of the program, I wanted to give you an overview. We're really going to start at the top, state level, and move down to how and explain how the state context, the state initiatives, state funding help us with our work, and then our role to kind of, you know, push and inform what we need, right, in the future. So we're going to start big, move down, and then end with, you know, what we can do collectively to make sure that we have not only grant funding, but funding in the future. So again, where does our collective work fit into this? You know, whether you're at a school site, a district office, a university, we've got to be making these connections across to make programs happen. So again, in the context of our work, this really comes from the California Global 2030. And there are some 4 points that describe this goal, this state goal that we are working towards. So, you know, when someone asks, what's the big deal? Why are you doing this? Why do you want funding for world languages or, you know, seal of biliteracy? Like, you know, what is the big deal? This is actually a state initiative. So it's important to know when we're communicating with our stakeholders, the why and the larger context, because sometimes we people forget or simply don't know. So we're going to do a quick chat check. And in the chat, if you could share, some ways your local context, again, site level, district, university is getting this word out and sharing this information. And I wanted to also point out that this presentation, you have the link, and there are some links within the presentation to help you provide resources to get this information out right here. So go ahead and I'm going to check out the chat and see, any new ideas that we can all take away from how to share this information.
Some ways I know that we have done this in case this triggers some of you to remember, just having we have a little, when you go to the doctor's office and you have like a little magazine rack, we have these little magazine racks there at the county office. And I got some additional copies of these initiatives and I have them there. And when my colleagues pass by, now that this was of course pre-pandemic, but we just wanted to make sure that it was available and handy. So, I don't know how you guys might be doing it in your own context, but that's something that we had to be intentional in making sure that everyone understood that this was a unique endeavor. We have the opportunity at LACO to go to, back in the day, but also now virtually participate in national level conferences. And I'm a California native. I, have, not participated. I had not participated at the national level before we got certain national grants. And then, so I was, going around taking informal surveys. What are you working on here in, your state over here in Indiana? And they would say, oh, but you're from California, you have this. And they were more aware of some of our initiatives in other states than sometimes we were in our own. So I think that was our purpose in making sure that as we go with our little shopping bag through all of these, presentations and amazing informational exchanges, that we put that in our basket and think, how can I, keep this on the forefront, because it's very easy to lose sight of it. So Natasha.
Thanks, Ruth.
Mm-hmm.
Another state initiative that you may have seen and heard about is our California English Learner Roadmap. And Ruth is going to help me speak a little bit more about this and the link between English learners, emergent bilinguals, and dual language immersion programs.
So Natasha, in the chat, just to kind of bring it together, we have some really great comments from iPad to Angeles about parents and the need and what a great tool these policy pieces are to help explain to parents. That's why we want them in those other languages. And that's very eye-opening to some parents. And students too. So we have some scholarship awardees for some of our county programs. And when they find out how much they are valued in this area, they are surprised sometimes, which is a little heartbreaking, but they're like, wow, I never knew that I was so important to this endeavor. So it's good for our parents and students. Thank you so much for sharing that. So I know this crowd really understands the California EL roadmap. Put a shout out to the EL roadmap in the chat if you have found that this roadmap has really helped you to articulate the vision that we have for English learners and multilingual learners for this additive model, right? To see what a gift that this policy piece that was developed by California Department of Education is, and much in the way that the BTPDP funding helped us grow our dual language programs. The funding for the EWIG grant that is behind the two projects that GABE and Californians Together are putting together in promoting the EL roadmap and really having people internalize these 4 principles first and foremost. And I know they're not supposed to be necessarily in order, but principle 1 about that assets-based approach. And I'm so glad that that's the leading principle, because that's the one that takes the greatest amount of mind shift sometimes outside of this group. We here in the, my bilingual, multilingual, even we go from bilingual to multilingual, right? Because our students are coming to to us with the gift of 3 languages. We're awarding scholarships to students now easily who come from home language environments where they're speaking 3 different languages, and that is a gift to us. And these policy pieces, which were then manifest into Ed Code, removed these barriers and made California really see that horizon. That horizon's coming into focus, and it's not receding, it's real, and we can get there. And that's what these 2 policy pieces do for us and have guided and inspired our work. Natasha?
And here is just, another infographic, and there's an article here that you can feel free to use as well, really showing the growth that's expected, again, by the California Department of Education, which is supported by policy, to really get to 1,600 schools, California schools with bilingual programs. And I think what we're going to be seeing is schools and districts with we're really using that word multilingual, because as you've seen even from the participants here, while Spanish, was pretty much the language talked about, and Mandarin, we're now responding to the students who are coming through our doors, using the students' home languages to really fuel and foster the growth of dual language immersion programs. And so we will have multiple languages at schools and districts, which is, it's fascinating, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And
if I could,
unique to California.
Oh yes, and just to add on, those 1,600, that makes it real, right? Now, all of us have a number in our head of how many programs you might have, how many schools you have in your district, how many classrooms you have in your school, how many teachers you have in those classrooms. And for us at the county level, it's how many of our districts have schools, and that's a real number to us. And that's what our challenge is. How do we support those 1,600 across our counties and grow them beyond? Those are real. Those each represent the blood, sweat, and tears, of the work that we're putting into this, of our amazing teachers. And I know we should have done this at the top, but thank you, teachers, for all the amazing work you're doing through this pandemic. We just want to acknowledge you, and we are so grateful for your work and the challenges that you are facing, but know how much your work inspires us. We get up in the morning because of you, because we know how much you make a difference in the lives of students. So thank you. A little bit belated, but thank you. Go ahead, Natasha.
And Ruth and I were both going to speak to this slide. So you've heard us say BTPDP, CDE, grants. So our work together, our actual partnership, Ruth and I, started around, although we had known each other before, we were actually able to work together around this particular grant that Los Angeles was awarded, and San Luis Obispo County Office of Ed was also awarded. There was a call and development to meet this California Global 2030 initiative. So of course, you've got to have some funding and seed money to start this kind of work. So the Bilingual Teacher Professional Development Program was developed, and a call out for folks all across the state to apply. And these were the 3 main goals of the grant: to prepare teachers to obtain their bilingual authorizations. And then, as we know, that's not enough, right? You, as a new teacher, I still remember over 20 years ago, you're ready in your classroom, ready to go, but so much support is still needed for not only new teachers, but also new leaders and administrators in specific to dual language. So these were the 3 overarching goals of the grant, and also to create those collaborations. So Ruth, I don't know if you want to mention here the partnership and speak to that Los Angeles County Bilingual Teacher Consortium.
Yeah, no, just in looking at these 3 pathways, these 3 approaches, it'll be very familiar to the recipients of the BTPDP. How do you like that? It took us a while to master that sequence of letters. But we have a lot of linguistic diversity in Los Angeles County. We have a lot of teachers. We have a lot of B-clad teachers. We have the basics of bilingual authorization. I'd say the concentration is pretty good, even though we should always grow. What our issue was confidence and rigor for what a DLI program is. This isn't bilingual, just being able to communicate with the parents and facilitate integrated ELD as needed for English learners. This was the level of pedagogy that was, we needed to go from freshman, JV, varsity. You know, we wanted to grow some varsity language teachers, and so our teachers in our surveys and as we started to have conversations with our districts was that confidence. Teachers who were fully bilingual but had either never pursued their BCLAD, they could easily pass it, but they weren't confident in their fluency in that target language. And then we also had the issue of being predominantly Spanish focused, where we have a growing population. I think the second highest is Korean, Chinese, Vietnamese, Armenian. We wanted to grow in a lateral direction as well and expand and really give our teachers that confidence. So this was our particular mission that was different. And on here we can see we were approached by the amazing and incredible Loyola Marymount University Center for Equity for English Learners, Dr. Magali Lavadens and Elvira Armas, who uniquely also have, in their journeys, those of you familiar with these amazing leaders in the field, came from an LEA and county office background. So they did that same journey that we were kind of on, and they really understood our challenges. So they asked, could we partner? And they were amazing partners. One thing too is that at LACO in the Moss unit, we also partnered with GABE continually. We still do constantly for their professional development, and they were the real kind of water carriers for the dual language program supports that we had before, throughout the BTPDP. We had wonderful offerings that we were able to facilitate and scholarship our folks through GABE. So bringing this collective impact and of course Californians together, always leading in the field, bringing them together and bringing the districts and these wonderful organizations and resources together, curated in a way that help meet the needs of the districts. Ruth, we need some folks who need to pass their BCLAD, and then we have this, but then we have some that are returning to the classroom who need the confidence in that target language. And so we tailored offerings in the way that we could as a county office. So and we have been really, and we are using that to sustain the work moving forward. Even after the grant runs out, we wanted to create a community that would last beyond the grant. And we hope that every time people gather who are like-minded, that a community is created. We hope that this presentation creates a little mini community, where you can reach out and say, okay, we had an experience where we learned something together, or we found out about something together, and how can we apply this to our own context? So this is the magic of what can happen when a county office can bring LEAs together in the same room, and organizations like GABE and Californians Together have been vanguard in doing. Natasha?
And I'm going to add to that, Ruth, the silver lining of the pandemic, and I think all of you have experienced this as well, is where we used to hustle and drive in, we're able to now, we're just a screen away, as one of our colleagues said. And so we've been able to attend lots of other counties' workshops on dual language immersion, world language, and we've been able to have folks from far away who when we were face to face probably wouldn't have been able to make a drive. So it's really we've been able to expand our network, and you can see in that middle column some of the specific collaboration of resources that all of these organizations together we've been able to provide: leadership sessions, teacher workshops, Spanish language development, and this is helping us fuel not only Spanish language development workshops, but Mandarin, Korean. We have now a structure and almost a template form to be able to apply to different languages. So we're really excited to grow our offerings beyond the grant. And this is a great slide. This is totally Ruth's slide. She did this one. It's spectacularly laid out.
No, it's just a visual to show what our vision for the LAC BTC consortium is, that the project that was funded, the little seed money grew into this consortium, which is the full organization of trying to support these teachers. It's a teacher support grant. Our leadership collaborative, which was a subset of that, were the leaders from our participant districts, and that was led by the amazing folks over at SEAL at LMU, and they led that in our first throughout the grant, and we're continuing that model moving forward. And then we would like the district cohort to then model that same leadership collaborative within their own LEA. So this idea of creating capacity at the district level, modeling it for them, and then bringing them together so that leadership collaborative continues to meet and nourish the greater community. And they share ideas and everything. And there they are. These are just, some of the LEAs that have joined us along the journey back when we met in person. But we could give you, Zoom screenshots of these same folks, and it has grown ever since. So these are just the seed, districts, and we have union high school districts, and we want to grow our team with feeder schools coming, and that's a unique configuration which we want to grow definitely. And so if you have that in your county, think about, those LEAs. If you're a feeder school, what about the high school district? And if you're a high school district, what about your feeder schools, to create that vertical piece? And that's our vision. And those are the wonderful folks who are trying to make it happen. Those are your colleagues. Go ahead, Natasha.
So we're now going to transition into San Luis Obispo County Office of Ed and the bilingual grant. But before we do that, I just wanted to bring us together and take a look at Nelson Mandela's words. If you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. If you talk to him in his own language, that goes to his heart. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but the work we're doing is incredibly important and unique in bringing community together around language and fostering that language development. So here we have a fellow bilingual teacher professional development program grantee. Again, we are linked as although I'm from Los Angeles, I'm now teaching and a faculty member at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. So I have had a great opportunity to really partner and work with both programs and grants. And really the grant was really supported heavily by Dr. James Brescia, who's the county superintendent. He wants these programs to grow in San Luis Obispo County. He wants to be able to attract teachers into the county and then grow teachers to teachers, leaders, and ultimately grow into site and district leaders, right? We have to think of teachers as beginning in a classroom and ultimately feeling confident to feel like a leader themselves. They truly are. Tracy Thies was the project manager at the county office, and Dr. Andrea Somoza Norton was the grant evaluator, is the grant. All these folks, our grant is still in place. We are funded and plans forward through June of this year. So while the SLOCO grant, as we said at the beginning, there were similarities, really the number one goal for their grant was to fully fund teachers in their journey to obtaining the bilingual authorization. So, a teacher could say, I'm interested in doing this. I've been a teacher, but I want my bilingual authorization. There were also teachers who said, I've never taught. I want to get my multiple subject. I want my bilingual authorization. And the grant was able to fund them. Later on, there's a link where they have laid out beautifully on the SLOCO website all the over 100 participants who've been able to obtain a bilingual authorization thanks to this grant. Additionally, similarly, the second goal was to create a collaborative, job-embedded culture of professional learning to again foster the confidence and competence, because it is not enough to award a credential or an authorization. As school and educational leaders, we want to be able to retain folks in the field. And this is done through support and networking and collaboration. And finally, different from LA County, a slight difference. Their third goal was to create a portal, a website where folks could collaborate around dual language immersion and multilingual education. And just in a moment, you'll see the link to that. They've done a fantastic job. And it's made us also in LA. Again, I'm uniquely in both places, which is so cool. Really, that's how we're communicating and looking in and learning from each other, is going to each other's websites and learning what's happening, what's working. And then typically the phone call happens, right? Like, I just saw this on your site, tell me more. So they have used their grant funding to really set this up. And I can tell you from the teachers who've gone through this program, they are connecting and collaborating and creating this network. And that's what we need to have this ripple effect out of a multilingual community. And here is an infographic from SLO County Office of Ed. This was prepared by the grant evaluator, Dr. Samosa Norton. You can see here what the candidates' demographics are who have gone through the program and the grant. You can see their highest degrees achieved here. Many already have masters, post-baccalaureate, the ages of the teachers. So you can see, look at this, 20 to 30 years of age. These are the teachers we want to keep in education, right? They are the ones who are going to be our greatest supporters to make sure that, again, I'm repeating myself, that these programs live on and strengthen and are rigorous. And you can see where the teachers are: teacher candidates, instructional coaches, middle school, high school, and the elementary teachers. So all of these different K-12 levels are being supported through the SLO County Office of Ed grant. And the other piece of the grant was to possibly have teachers who spoke Spanish, but were in monolingual classrooms, to help them obtain a bilingual authorization and move into a dual immersion setting. So you can see where those are right now. And then again, setting where the candidates are currently teaching. This is what makes SLO County different from LA, is the rural. And some have obtained these authorizations and are currently looking to get into dual immersion programs. So it's very exciting. So we have got a quick chat check. You know, just to think about your partnerships to support programs. You know, hopefully you've gotten some ideas how to grow partnerships, strengthen networks to make multilingual programs happen in your area. And there's the link to see who are the grant recipients and to see what SLOCO has done with their website.
Natasha, we have a little resource action in the chat right now.
Awesome.
We had a question about how to support paraeducators, and I know our colleague Angelica has put some resources and linking it to the CABE resources for supporting those teachers. And so the unique connection there is we have access to the teacher support programs for example, at LACO, and to connect these resources with them too, as they work with their beginning teachers. So that's a good kind of intersection. So that's one of the goals of our grant too, is to make sure we bring surface all of those to our beginning teachers. So it happened in the chat box right there.
Yeah, I love it. And you're absolutely right. CABE, it is a discussion happening of you know, how to grow the folks who are in your organizations who want to pursue additional education. So yes, definitely paraeducators, instructional assistants is also what has been discussed in this grant. So for SLOCO, there's quite a bit of preliminary data. Again, the grant ends in June, and all of us around the state who have this grant are starting to look at, okay, what have we been able to accomplish? What are some things that we still want to develop and improve upon? And really, number one here is that the teacher and principal participation in professional development is showing a robust increase in the pool of practicing bilingual teachers. And what is also coming out of the preliminary surveys, I'm going to jump to the bottom, and I don't think this is a surprise, is that teacher candidates are asking for additional support in teaching math strategies in dual immersion and parental engagement as well. So this is also the fruit of a grant, is not only great, this is all that we were able to accomplish, but what can we take and inform policy and state of, this is additional work that we've learned out of the grant that we would like to pursue. And it's happening here, here, here. So again, with this kind of information is how, you talk to those, even groups like California Sierra CABE, who are policymakers. Again, just a reminder of our work, the limits of my language mean the limits of my world. And again, you all are supporters of this idea that when we speak a different language, when we communicate, when we can read, write, it's a whole other world. So, huge kudos and shout out to all of you doing this work. And I think another big point that Ruth and I want to make is, don't feel you're doing this in isolation. This is, the CABE conference is a great example of all the folks who are in on this. So, if anything, next week, reach out to people. Let's keep connecting, because together this is how we do the work. This is a reminder. I know you've seen this all over the conference and before, but our work is grounded in the guiding principles for dual language education. And again, to remind your stakeholders, we're not just making this up. This isn't like just for fun, or this is grounded in research. This is grounded in years of studies and continuous ongoing careful look at our work. So again, as I mentioned, the grant work and really looking at what districts need and the amount of teachers and teacher support beyond obtaining the authorization, we are reflecting, and this is happening at SLOCO as well, as okay, if we've got these top 5 languages in the state, how are we linking our elementary students who are now going to be coming out of dual immersion with really strong, high-level language skills into high school? How are we bridging into secondary? How are we supporting pathways for the seal of biliteracy? And how are we linking our dual immersion work to world language standards? So this is a conversation we are currently having, how to bring these folks in the room together, because I hear from secondary teachers, wow, I got this kid who came from dual immersion and, somehow ended up in Spanish 1, and that's not where that kid belongs. So, and, similarly, we hear from parents who, how can we have those conversations with secondary, this two-way, right, of merging our worlds and our work, most importantly, because ultimately we've got the same goals. We want kids to graduate with that seal of biliteracy, which was actually, started here in California, and many states are now replicating. Ruth, before I jump on, do you want to add anything? I'm like watching the clock. We're getting down, like time flies.
Yeah, we clipping right along. Yes. So
go ahead, Ruth. This is something we talked about as well.
So as we did this work, what this work did for us is it put us in the room with our amazing colleagues. We have other opportunities at LACO, for example. We have other obligations, so we had to go to Sacramento a lot. We meet a lot with our colleagues, regional EL specialists, and other different bilingual coordinators networks. So we saw our colleagues, and it was really helpful to hear what they were doing But then we were just downright inspired by many of our county offices. So San Diego County is just, so vanguard in the area of dual language. And we just look to them and are inspired by them. Even though we're so big and linguistically diverse, we're all organized differently in county offices. So it's always inspiring to see how they might make the work more efficiently executed in another county, or what unique barriers they face. I always joke around with my colleagues from up north. They're like, Ruth, we got to drive really far and into the mountains. I go, well, we got to find parking, so that's really hard in LA, parking, distance. But San Diego has always been an inspiration. Santa Clara, incredible work with English learners and in so many languages, and then San Bernardino with their equity work. So this all flows, at the county level, and we feel it is our mission, our obligation to make sure it flows out to our local educational agencies and schools, and over 300 charter schools. That's our unique kind of thing. I know a lot of counties do have them, but in Los Angeles, we have such a concentration, and so many of them don't have the infrastructure support to understand how they can help expand dual language and just even linguistic support for their students. So this is a way to really help support those smaller schools that don't have that support. So I just have to do a shout out to all of our county offices across the state who have helped in this lateral collaboration. And if we move forward, one of the kind of amalgam of this inspiration is we're going to be looking at starting our own World Languages Collaborative, which is building the pathway from both ends. So we're starting DLA here with the growing them from this end, but then looking at our high schools and see how we can have them meet in the middle and bring our world. And now with the work of the World Languages Framework, and that is something we are looking forward to doing this year and planning and expanding out for next year as a result of this grant. Even though the funding is not there, we're hoping now that we have the infrastructure, we'll find a way to expand that, because we have no place for our world languages teachers right now in Los Angeles to come together and have that dialogue. So we want to nurture that.
Apologize
oops,
for
I
the
think,
interruption.
yes.
Unfortunately, we're out of time for today's session. So
Okay.
thank you for a wonderful presentation. We do have 15 seconds for any closing thoughts before we end.
We're good. Thank you everyone for coming. We hope you get inspired to do some work out there in your own, and thank you for all that you are doing. We're good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.